Hello everyone, I'm Vinod and welcome to Career Board. Today we're going to again talk about IIT toppers from the year 2001 to 2010. This is the fourth of a set of videos on the topic of where IIT toppers are with respect to their careers. And I want to share insights in terms of possible things you can learn from their experience, show some tips in terms of how you can frame your careers. So let's look at the first set of folks from 2001 onwards. And the first person we're going to discuss is Arvind Thiagarajan. So Arvind Thiagarajan again went to IIT Madras for an undergrad in computer science and engineering. So you can see that after he did his undergrad in computer science, he was working as a technology consultant in a company called Traffic RNA and a company called Infix. Infix got acquired by Amazon, so it looks like he ended up in Amazon. Then he worked in Twitter for a couple of years, and then he worked as a software engineer. So there's a very interesting parallels between the ex-CEO of Twitter, Parag Agrawal, and Arvind. Both kind of finished their PhDs around their undergrad at the same time, their PhDs around the same time. They joined Twitter around the same time. And by the time Arvind got from being a research scientist to being a principal ML engineer, Parag was already a CEO. So both kind of started at the same time, but had different career tracks. Now, Arvind Thiagarajan had PhD from MIT. Parag had this ex-CEO Parag had a PhD from Stanford University. But again, each person have their own career tracks based on what their interests are and where they can contribute. And sometimes it's totally okay for you to not rise in the organization. You can be very comfortable being where you are. So Arvind Thiagarajan recently looks like he left Google a couple of months. He left Twitter a couple of months back and joined Google in India, and he's currently probably working in India. So he's in the space of machine learning, and that's his area of expertise. So Arvind was a very interesting person. He had almost close to a 10 GPA at IIT Madras, which is pretty unheard of. In the history of IIT Madras, he's among the top 2-3 people who are as close as possible to a 10 GPA. Nobody's ever gotten a 10 GPA, but Arvind came very close to it. I think it's somewhere in 9.96, 9.97, something like that. So one of the top students to come out of IIT Madras. And IIT Madras has had a history of producing a lot of students who go to do their PhDs abroad. So Arvind took that path, and again, he won one of the Olympiads. I believe he won one of the physics Olympiads when he was in school. He was, I hear he had a full score in the GRE, and he had a very high percentile in the CAT exam, like some 99.99 percentile. Again, there's just a lot of information about him in terms of he's just an exemplary person. And he's had a fantastic career, and it's fantastic that he decided to come back to India and work in India. So hats off to him. Year 2002 was Dungara Ram Choudhary. So Dungara had a very interesting profile in the sense of his dad was a farmer, and when he topped IIT, it was very big news. So Dungara was also a very special case where when he tried his IIT exam, he did not make it for the first time, and during his second attempt, he was a topper. So that speaks volumes to how the IIT exam is in terms of if you get selected, it means a lot, but if you don't get selected, it doesn't mean much. You can still be an exemplary person, and sometimes the exams are not very valid, not well defined, that it filters out the best of students. So again, Dungara was a topper of his time. Nobody really expected him to be the topper, but he was, I believe, just based on some rumors in Quora that again, he was not even one of the toppers in his IIT classes, but then he just did his exam, the JEE exam, really well. He has an undergrad in computer science. Looks like he finished it really well and then went on to work in a bunch of companies. So he began working in Airtight Networks. That was his first company. He worked in Pune for a couple of years, and then he switched to working in Oracle in India for a couple of years, got moved to the Bay Area in San Francisco. So that's where he is. He's a senior software development engineer, and that's a good role to be in. Oracle is not the most fancy company in the Silicon Valley Bay Area. I worked there. But again, Dungara has had an excellent career, and I'm sure with this kind of profile, he can switch to any company he wants. So he lives in Redwood City, which is very close to Silicon Valley, near San Jose. So it's in between San Jose and Palo Alto. That's where the Redwood City is. So Dungara, in spite of not doing a master's degree, he still has had a really good career. And it also speaks to the fact that you can begin your career in India, work for a couple of years, and companies will be happy to move you from India to the US on an L1 visa. And that's a place where you don't really need to do a master's degree to get to the US. You don't need to spend enormous amounts of money from your end to do a master's degree or force yourself into doing a PhD degree just for the sake of funding. You can do an undergrad, work in India, especially in computer science for a couple of years, and then move over to the US. So Dungara went to IIT Kanpur. So again, till 2002, IIT Kanpur was still a very good choice for people who wanted to study computer science. Shashank was a topper in 2003, Shashank Shekhar Dwivedi, and he went to study electrical engineering in IIT Bombay. So this is very interesting because in 2003, there was a little bit of a recession and people are frightened by what the recession meant. So there was a rumor going on in 2003 saying that if you study computer science, you probably will not have jobs. The Silicon Valley crashed at that time. A lot of startups crashed around the 2002, 2003 time period. So the feeling then was that computer science doesn't have a great career. And if you want to play it safe, you probably need to be studying something else like electrical engineering, where you can learn computer science, but also be very traditional in terms of the jobs you get. So you can ride two horses at the same time. That was the intent. A lot of people did take up electrical engineering. So if you fast forward to the present and you look back, you see that how wrong all this was. So currently there is a choice in terms of somebody opting between electrical engineering and computer science. I would strongly recommend that they take up computer science because software engineering, computer science is eating up the world. Code, everyone has got to know coding. Most of the jobs in mechanical engineering right now is linked to the space of data analytics and coding. So again, short-term recession throws up curveballs, and many students think that it's better to play it safe. But again, computer science is still one of the most preferred of career options. Even off late, when I was talking to a bunch of IITs as their advisor, I'm still hearing that computer science students are the best place in this current job market. And every other traditional branch like electrical engineering, mechanical, civil are getting screwed big time. And computer science, you not only have jobs, you also have high compensation. So it's a great win for computer science. So in terms of Shashank, he was a person who picked up a bronze medal in International Physics Olympiad. If you actually look at Parag Agarwal, who was ex-CEO of Twitter, he was one of the gold medalists in the Physics Olympiad. So again, there's a link between Physics Olympiad and in terms of your academic success. So Shashank went to IIT at Bombay and then went to MIT, but there's not much information about Shashank. I couldn't find much information about him. Looks like he did do some sort of probably a PhD at MIT. That's all I could glean from the internet. Sushant Sachdeva is the topper in 2004. So he currently works in the University of Toronto as assistant professor. And he has an interesting profile in terms of he did his undergrad in computer science and engineering and then went on to do his PhD in Princeton University, advised by Sanjeev Arora. So if you watch my earlier video about the toppers from 1990 to 2000, you will see that one of the toppers between 1990 to 2000 also went to Princeton, worked under Sanjeev Arora. And Sanjeev Arora was a topper in the IIT entrance exam in the 1980s. So it looks like if you're a topper, you really have a place waiting for you under Sanjeev Arora at Princeton University. So Sushant worked as a postdoc for a couple of years. He was at Yale University, the Department of Computer Science. Ivy Leagues are not really well known for the engineering programs. I'm a little surprised that Sushant actually went to Yale. The best of the Ivy League programs is probably Cornell University and Columbia University, Yale, Harvard, Princeton. I mean, they're really good in the theoretical computer science, but they're very selective and they're a really small program, unlike MIT, Stanford, and Berkeley. So Sushant goes on to do his postdoc from Yale, and then he works as a research scientist in Google for a year. And then he works at the Institute for Advanced Study, which is where Albert Einstein went to near New Jersey for some time. And then he joined University of Toronto as assistant professor. So very interesting. So, so it's possible that you can enter academia after you spend a couple of years working as a postdoc. So that's what you learn. And you can see Sushant's interests are also in algorithms, machine learning, statistics. So that's absolutely fantastic that Sushant was able to find a job in academia. What you will see as a trend is that between 2000 to 2010, a lot of students went out to do their undergrad master's and PhD in computer science. The computer science degree started becoming really important. A lot of people went over to the US. So after 2005, you see a trend where it's actually very difficult to get into academia because it's not just okay being a superstar. You need to be superstar to even get into a PhD program in computer science, and to get into uh, actual academic job, it's even more difficult. So kudos to Sushant for getting into academic position. Piyush, interesting person. So 2005 topper. He's probably one of the smartest people to come out of IITs. He was a winner of, I believe it was probably the math or the physics Olympiad. He was Aditya Birla Scholar. He had a full 10 out of 10 GPA from IIT Kanpur. He won the physics Olympiad. He was the IIEEE topper. He finished his computer science, had a full GPA, went on to Berkeley, did his PhD in computer science. And then you can see that he worked as a postdoc for 2.5 years. And then he came back to India. He works at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Now, for those who do not know, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research is one of the best research organizations in India. So in terms of hardcore research, you'll see that there are a couple of institutes which do really well in India. One is the Baba Atomic Research Center. The second one is the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. The third one is the Indian Institute of Science. There is a Jawaharlal Nehru Council for Advanced Scientific Research, JNCASR. So these are all really, really good in this space. They're comparable to the best in the world. So I've seen that a lot of people who study TAFR, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, or work as a professor out there, very easy for them to go to IISc and also continue as a professor. So a professor in TAFR is almost as good as being a professor at the Indian Institute of Science. So Piyush has come back to TAFR based in Mumbai, and I love the fact that somebody went abroad and studied in all these places. Like he's done a postdoc at California Institute of Technology. He studied at Berkeley and then decided to come back to India. These really are the people who are going to uphold India in the future. And it also speaks to the fact that there's a lot more opportunities in India. And clearly, what happens is also that when you spend a lot of time abroad, your family is pretty much stuck in India, your parents and so on. So as you get older, it's very necessary for many folks who are in the US to consider coming back to India. So that happens all the time. So kudos to Piyush for coming back to India. Really appreciate it. He's probably one of the best in the field, and I expect that he's going to make remarkable advances in his space, and India is going to gain a lot from people like Piyush. Okay, let's look at Raghu Mahajan in 2006. So Raghu is very interesting. He went to IIT Delhi. He's among the very, very few people who actually got a perfect GPA, 10 out of 10 GPA from IIT Delhi. He was a topper in 2006, the JEE exam. He was also the top rank in IIEEE. He was a gold medalist in International Physics Olympiad. He actually studied in IIT Delhi for 2 years and actually transferred to MIT to do his undergrad. So you can see that he actually went to MIT and repeated 3 years. So it's almost like this 2 years of coursework at IIT Delhi was considered to the freshman coursework at MIT. So he ended up in a 4-year course at MIT, he ended up repeating 3 years. So again, basically says that instead of graduating in 2010, he graduated in 2011, went on to do his master's at Cambridge University and finished his PhD in theoretical and mathematical physics. I find that really interesting because in this case, Raghu went from a computer science degree to doing a bachelor's in mathematics to then mathematics and physics to then switching to theoretical and mathematical physics at Cambridge and then doing a theoretical mathematics physics PhD at Stanford University. Of course, you should pursue your interest and your careers. And computer science, there are absolutely a hell lot of applications in industry and academia. There's a lot of work you can do. But then there are people who are really good in something. For example, if you ask me, Raghu clearly is a gold medalist in the International Physics Olympiad. So why should these people be doing an undergrad degree in computer science or mathematics, right? Probably they should be working in physics. That's really what Raghu has done. He's tried to follow his passion. That's absolutely fantastic. He currently works as a postdoc at Stanford. He also worked as a postdoc at Princeton earlier after his stint at Stanford University in the PhD program. So absolutely fantastic. He has done lots of work in the space of physics, and you can see that he still works as a postdoc. Now, something I want to talk about through the example of Raghu is that the field of sciences in the US is very, very difficult, where it's tough for you to get into a job as an academic. So if you want to enter academia, work as a professor, assistant professor, right? You have to be the creme de la creme, the best of the best. It's not just enough being a top-notch person. So I'm actually surprised that Raghu did his PhD from Stanford in just 5 years. It's very common in physics, chemistry, and mathematics, where you do your PhD in, say, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years for regular folks. So again, the grades don't matter when you do your PhD in the sciences. It's all about the research in terms of what you publish. That's very important. And there are very, very few jobs available in the space of physics, chemistry, and mathematics. So the engineering schools tend to be well funded. There is a lot of research dollars coming to the schools of computer science. Every company, whether it's Google, Facebook, Amazon, they all want to sponsor research in machine learning, computer science, theoretical computer science, practical computer science. So there's just a lot of money which comes into the engineering programs, and they have large number of faculty members, large number of students, and so on. But when it comes to physics, chemistry, it's pretty much held together not by private donations or from private companies. It's held together because of government funding. So what happens is that the number of professors and even the best of schools in physics, chemistry, and so on is very limited. And when the number of professors are limited, the number of opportunities for new PhD or postdocs to enter academia is even more limited. So it'd be interesting to see where Raghu ends up working after doing his postdoc and where he ends up in academia. But the fact remains that if you don't get into academia the first shot, basically keep working as a postdoc. And postdocs are not very highly paid. It's one of the lowest paid of academic professions. You're making close to nothing. And if Raghu is based out of Stanford and working as a postdoc, again, it's a super expensive place. It's probably going to be a struggle. But then even academic positions are not that well paid, but again, at least it's better paying than, say, postdoc positions. So let's see where Raghu's career pans out. But I really appreciate the fact that he's following his passion. He's doing a postdoc after doing a PhD in the space of physics, which is absolutely interesting. Because people tend to chase money, saying that if I study computer science, I'm going to make a lot of money. But again, sometimes money follows later. Develop skills, become good in something, and you will get all the fame, name, adulation, and the incomes you're looking for. But that happens much later in your career. Try to find something which is interesting and follow your passions. And I'm super happy that Raghu did follow his passion. Achin Bansal. Achin went to IIT Bombay, did his degree in computer science. I was in IIT Bombay around the same time period. So again, 2007, I remember that I was still at IIT Bombay. So interesting that he studied then. And he currently works as executive director at Morgan Stanley in New York. So a typical finance company. So this banking sector is very interesting. When you initially join, most entry-level jobs tend to be like an associate. You spend 1 or 2 years, you become like a vice president. But a vice president is more of an entry-level job. So above a vice president is like a director, managing director, executive director, and so on. So that's how the finance industry works. So Achin, again, we're looking at his profile, like he was a topper in 2007, but then he had a GPA of 8.97 from his IIT days, and his AIEEE rank was 47. So he did not do a master's degree, but still he's been able to create a good career in New York, and he's been donating a lot of charities. So it looks like he's having a good time in his life. So again, you can have a great career. You can also go to the US without really going for a master's degree. You can work in India for a couple of years, and I'm sure Achin worked in Morgan Stanley, Bombay for a couple of years, and then moved on to New York under L1 visa, transfer visa. 2008 was Shitikanth Kashyap. So Shitikanth, again, interesting, goes IIT Kanpur, does an undergrad in computer science. So he's among the few of the folks who actually go on to schools outside IIT Bombay for doing a computer science degree. What really happened after 2010 is that most people ended up choosing IIT Bombay for computer science. It always became a bit of a frenzy because every year the top 100 ranks, the majority began to choose IIT Bombay, and every subsequent year, people began to blindly follow the choices made by their predecessors and also began to choose the same branches and the same IITs. So without applying their mind, people began to choose IIT Bombay. I'm from IIT Bombay myself. I should not be slamming IIT Bombay, but it's really unfortunate that in the top 100 ranks, almost like 98% of them tend to choose IIT Bombay and Delhi currently. And it's probably one person who joins IIT Kanpur or IIT Madras, and probably no one joins IIT Kharagpur, which is really, really sad because I really believe that if you have a choice between electrical engineering at IIT Bombay versus computer science at any other top IIT, you have to go to the other IITs and do your computer science degree rather than join electrical engineering at IIT Bombay. But again, coming back to Shitikanth, he goes on to University of Waterloo in Canada to do his PhD in computer science. So University of Waterloo is very famous. It's like in Canada, there are a couple of universities that are very strong for engineering. One is the University of Waterloo, and the other one is the University of Vancouver, which is very close to Seattle. So Seattle and Vancouver are tech hubs. Likewise, Waterloo is also a tech hub. So the computer science degree is really prominent. And I love the fact that Shitikanth, after doing his PhD, comes back to work in India. He works in Gurugram, and he's right now working in Bangalore as a CTO of a company called Austin. Absolutely fantastic that he's willing to let go of a career in the US or Canada and then come back to India. He could have probably gotten a job anywhere in the US in any of the top companies, but he decided to come back to India for whatever reason. It could be personal, it could be professional, but I love the fact that he did make the difficult choice. That's absolutely amazing. But it also points to the fact that a lot more opportunities opening up in India. You can even have a great career within India. You don't need to be working the best companies outside. You can also think of a world where you work in India for a couple of years, get transferred to other countries like the US for a couple of years, and then come back to work in India. So that happens too. So if you have a global career, you don't need to be fixed in terms of geography. You don't need to choose between India or the US or India and Europe. You can be India, US, Europe, and back to India, and back to Europe, and back to India, and so on. So any sort of combination is possible. 2009 was Nitin Jain. So Nitin Jain went to do his computer science from IIT Delhi. He again not just topped the IIT, but also got the top rank in the IIEEE exam. And he's written a book called The Secret of My Success Book. So it's available on Amazon, I believe. So do check it out. He currently lives in San Francisco. He works for Google currently. And he also has won gold medals. He won the International Physics Olympiad. He won the International Olympiad on astronomy and astrophysics and so on. What I would say is that this person did not do a master's degree. Because this person is still in the space of computer science, I think it's a big miss in the space of physics that they ended up losing out on such a great talent like Nitin Jain by Nitin just pursuing a career in computer science. It's not casting aspersions on Nitin. I think he did what matters for his career, and he built a great career in computer science in Google in the Bay Area, which is fantastic. But at the same time, I just think it's a big loss for the research community, especially the physics community, that the superstars in this space actually move on to computer science. His name came up in a recent lawsuit where in 2018, he was suing other coaching companies for putting up his name as being their student. And they're still working on that matter. I don't know what the outcome of the case was. And that's where you also read that he's working with Google in San Francisco. So actually, Google really has a limited presence in San Francisco. So most of their folks work in a place called Mountain View, which is very close to Stanford University. So Mountain View and Stanford University is kind of halfway in between San Jose, Silicon Valley, and San Francisco. So most of the young folks are based out of San Francisco, and you can see that most of the older folks tend to work in San Jose, which is also called the Silicon Valley. And of late, what's happening is that Facebook, Google have also opened up offices very close to Stanford University. So Facebook in Menlo Park and Google at Mountain View. So that's close to Stanford and right in the center of San Francisco and San Jose. There's also a couple of places called Redwood City and San Bruno, which is all nearby to Stanford University, and there are a lot of young folks even out there. So again, just that's kind of the outline of the land in terms of how the Bay Area is. So I think it's probably the reference was to Google in Mountain View and not San Francisco. 2010, Anumula Jithendar Reddy. So Jithendar is the son of a professor at IIT Warangal. So again, just an interesting fact that most of the toppers of the IIT exam tend to have a background where they either the children of business owners, children of doctors, children of people working in the government sector as a government officer, or tend to be working as professors in universities in India. So Jithendar was son of a professor at NIT Warangal, and he was very interested in doing physics, but ended up joining IIT Bombay, did his bachelor's in electrical engineering. And again, if you look at 2010, you can see what happened at that time. 2010 was the time of great recession. There were very little jobs. So it's very easy for students to extrapolate, look at the recession and say, oh my gosh, there are no jobs in computer science. Maybe I should play it safe and enter electrical engineering because I can then do a bit of computer science and other areas of specialization. A lot of graduate schools in the US call themselves the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. So there are very few pure computer science departments at the top universities in the US. They tend to be called EECS. Like MIT is very famous for its EECS program. Georgia Tech is very famous for its EECS program, and so on. So it looks like Jithendra did his undergrad in electrical engineering and went on to do his master's in electrical engineering. If you look at ETH Zurich, which is where he did his master's, it says that he ended his PhD program in November of 2018. So it looks like he's probably still in Zurich. It's not clear where he is exactly, but I'd still assume that he's doing some research based in Switzerland in Zurich. So that's where he is. Okay, folks, so I pretty much come to the end of my conversation. So let me know if you have any comments, if you have further questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Let me know in the comments below. Do subscribe to my channel and click the subscribe button and the bell icon, because only then the YouTube algorithm is gonna push my videos to your feed, news feed, so that you can watch my videos as and when I roll it out. Okay, folks, it's a pleasure talking to you. And again, I'm sharing my views not just in terms of being a person working in industry, but I also work as faculty at IIT Palakkad and IIT Kerala. So I just find it interesting that the profiles of people in the past can also inform the choices of people in the future. And I think the biggest lesson you can learn from all of this is that it doesn't matter where you study, what you study, whether you do studies abroad, whether you do a PhD or not. It's more about your passion, your interest. That's really is going to decide where you end up. So if you look at this recent example of Parag Agarwal, who was a ex-CEO of Twitter, he has a very interesting profile. So he did his undergrad in IIT Bombay and then did his PhD from Stanford University. His sister is also a PhD from MIT. His sister is working presently as a professor at the University of Washington. And likewise, Parag joined Twitter in 2011 and became a CEO. He just got fired by Elon Musk, and that caused a lot of furor on the internet. But of late, I just read a news article that Elon Musk, the richest person in the world, is looking at a person called Sriram Krishnan to help him with reorganizing the team at Twitter and look after engineering in Twitter. So Sriram Krishnan, his profile is that he has undergrad in computer science from Madras University, the year 2005. He's not really done any master's degree after that. So he's from a college called SRM Engineering College in Chennai, which is a private engineering college. So Sriram Krishnan, after that, has worked in Microsoft for a couple of years. I believe he worked in India for a couple of years, then moved over to Seattle. Since then, he's worked in Seattle, the Bay Area, and so on. So he was a VP at companies like Twitter, and he worked Facebook for a couple of years, then joined Twitter. He was a VP, then took a sabbatical, and then he's back to Twitter. And again, this speaks to the volume that anyone can have a fantastic career in the space of computer science. You don't really need to do master's and PhD programs, but you can do very well in your career, even if it's just an undergrad degree. But the most important thing is you have a passion in that space. The fact that Sriram Krishnan is able to go head to head with Parag Agarwal, who has a PhD in computer science, while Sriram is just undergrad in computer science, just speaks to the fact that all these advanced degrees don't help in industry. It's more of, it definitely helps in academia, but it doesn't help in industry. More of your passion, your hard work is what's going to matter in the workplace. So with that thought, I'm going to leave you for, it was great talking to you. Bye.